A review of loanable funds in the Fed. So, loanable funds market. Savers supply funds to borrowers who want to invest them in the loanable funds market. Savers lend by buying bonds or depositing their money in the bank. So that's how the loanable funds become available. Borrowers are households, like people who borrow for a mortgage, or firms who borrow to pay for capital stock. That's who invest in. Remember, capital stock is equipment and factories. Bonds. Interest on bonds is equal to the return divided by the bond price. That's how you determine the interest on bonds. If there's an increase in interest rates, it decreases the price of bonds. The price of bonds and interest rates have an inverse relationship. Make sure you know that. Graph of the loanable funds market. One axis is the quantity of loanable funds. The other axis is the real interest rate. Right? And then you've got the supply of loanable funds, demand of loanable funds, and the real interest rate and quantity of loanable funds. Okay? Remember, I got them backwards. Demand is always downward sloping. Demand of loanable funds, supply of loanable funds. And remember that the demand is investment. You don't have to put that on the graph, but I'm just reminding you, supply is savers. Okay. Graph of the loanable funds. All right. Interest rates. Interest rate is the price of a loan. As interest rate increases, the quantity of loanable funds demanded decreases. The quantity of loanable funds supplies increases. That's the law, like the law of demand we had in micro, dealing with price and demand and supply for something in the market. If interest rates decrease, the quantity of loanable funds demanded increases because people, they can borrow the loanable fund at a lower interest rate, so the demand for it's going to go up, but the supply is going to go down because people that are supplying the funds aren't making as much interest off of the loan. Yes.
Is this a shift along the curve or like a shift up the curve?
These would be movement along the curve.
Okay.
The interest rate effect causes the downward slope of the aggregate demand curve. Interest rates. Graph of a government budget deficit. Okay. Okay, so that's If the government is borrowing a lot of funds, it takes away from the amount that others can borrow. So we're going to graph this with the shift of the supply of loanable funds to the left. That's a decrease in the supply. So this becomes supply of loanable funds 2, and that's causing interest rates to go up. Okay, what do we call this? When the government borrows to pay for the deficits, what is it called? Crowding out. This is crowding out. It's crowding out the loanable funds market from other investors. For other investors, they're hogging all the funds. Okay. So let's see. Crowding out. We have increase in interest rates, which decreases investment, increases personal savings. Right? It decreases investment, increases personal savings. Crowding out. Real interest rate is equal to the nominal interest rate minus inflation. That's how you figure the real interest rate. Open market operations. That's when the Fed buys and sells bonds. If the Fed buys bonds, he increases the money supply by putting money into the people that sell the bonds in the public into their pocket. When you increase the money supply, that decreases the nominal interest rate. That increases investment, which increases aggregate demand, which increases real GDP. That's an expansionary monetary policy. Ways Fed increases the money supply. Open market operations by buying bonds, decreasing the reserve requirement for the banks, right? So remember that the money multiplier, if they decrease the reserve requirement, the money multiplier becomes bigger. The smaller this number, the smaller the reserve requirement, the bigger the money multiplier will be. Decrease in interest rate. The interest rate decrease the federal funds rate. All right? Question on the way the Fed can increase the money supply. This interest rate can be the discount rate. That's what the Fed charges banks. Yeah, that should say discount rate. I wrote interest rate. It should say discount rate. Quantity theory of money. The amount of money times its velocity is equal to the price times the output of the economy. So when you increase money supply, it's going to increase inflation. This goes up, then prices are going to have to go up to make it balance. Quantity theory of money. Net present value. The future value of money, of present money, is calculated by taking 1 plus the interest rate, and it compounds, times the number of years that you want to figure into the future. Future value. Economic growth theories. Demand side, which is Keynesian. Laissez-faire, classical. And supply side, which is just called supply side. All right? So demand side is your typical fiscal monetary policy. Laissez-faire, leave it alone. Supply side, cut taxes on corporations, and the wealthy and the money will, from the supply will ease into the economy. Stabilization policies. Monetary policy monetary injection by the Fed buying bonds decreases the interest rate. Fiscal policy, increase government spending, and you got the multiplier effect, which is, what is the multiplier effect? Money multiplier. The multiplier. What is the money multiplier, or the spending multiplier? Remember it? Yes, propensity to consume. Yes, 1 minus 1 over MPC. And then with government spending, it can cause, but you're going to have, when you do that, when the government spends money, there's going to be some crowding out. So that's going to take away from the multiplier effect. Or they can decrease taxes. That increases consumption and investment, increases aggregate demand, but not as much as government spending, because why? When there's tax cuts, what do people do? They tend to, they hold on to the money. They don't spend it all, right? They hold on to some of their tax savings. What is the tax multiplier? Yeah.
MPC over MPS.
Right, MPC over MPS. All right. Okay. Any questions before the loanable funds quiz? No questions. All right.